new block. Let's install it right now. Tap the block to install it. It helps the vehicle move on the ground. Let's install an engine and a battery. The engine turns the track so that the vehicle can move, and the battery helps start the engine and provides power for headlights, controls, and other systems. These are the fuel tanks. Install them. The fuel tanks contain gasoline or other fuel. Let's install internal equipment. It consists of an ammunition stowage rack and seats for tank crew. It's time to install controls. They are necessary to control the tank, its gun, and systems. Let's install a hull. The hull is made of armor. It protects the crew and the internal parts. Now it's time to install the turret of a tank. The turret is needed to rotate the gun independently from the tank. And now let's install the gun of a tank. The gun is used to fire at targets. Now we need to install a hatch. The hatch is needed for the crew to enter and exit. Let's install the reactive armor of a tank. It provides additional protection of the tank in case it gets hit by an enemy projectile. It's time to install additional fuel tanks. Thanks to them, a tank can be refueled so it can travel a greater distance. Now let's install lighting equipment. It includes a searchlight, headlights, and rear lights. They are needed for the crew to see the road and targets in the dark. Let's install a communication system. It is needed to provide communication between the tank crew and the command. Don't stop. Short. First, let's install a frame. This is the basic part of a car. The frame carries all the other parts. Now let's install wheels. A car needs rolling wheels to move on the road. This is an engine. Install it. The engine turns the wheels so that the car can move. Now install the battery. The battery helps you start the car and also provides power for the lights, controls, and other systems. These are the fuel tanks. Install them. The fuel tanks contain gasoline or other fuel. Let's install a water jet. It is needed so that an APC can move on water. Let's install internal equipment. It consists of seats for the crew and a compartment for the infantry group. It's time to install controls. They are necessary for a driver and a commander to control the APC. Let's install a hull. The hull is made of armor. It protects the crew and the internal parts. Let's install the turret of an APC. The turret is needed to rotate the gun independently from the APC. And now we need to install the autocannon of an APC. The autocannon is used to fire at targets. Let's install the smoke generator. It is needed to mask an APC with the help of a smoke screen. Now let's install side doors and escape hatches. They are needed for quick embarking and debarking of the infantry. Now we need to install a hatch. The hatch is needed for the crew to enter and exit. These are the lookout hatches and the special equipment. Come, let's install them. The crew uses the lookout hatches to navigate while driving, and the special equipment is utilized during combat and in the dark. Now let's install lighting equipment. It includes a searchlight, headlights, and rear lights. They are needed for the crew to see the road and targets in the dark. Let's install a float. It is necessary to keep an APC on the water. Now let's install a case with spare parts, tools, and accessories. They are used to repair an APC. Amazing! Chassis are the wheels that are used during takeoff and landing. Now we need to install engines. They propel a fighter. Now install the battery. The battery helps to start the fighter jet, and it also provides energy for lighting equipment, controls, and other systems. These are the fuel tanks. Install them. This is where the fuel is stored on board. The fuel tanks are separated to distribute the weight of a fighter evenly. It's time to install the wings of a fighter. Hooray! You've got a new block. Let's install it right now. Tap the block to install it. The wings allow a fighter to fly up and down, and also help control it in the air. And now we need to install a single-barrel cannon. The cannon has a high firing rate and is needed to shoot at targets. Let's install a fuselage. Parts of an aircraft are attached to the fuselage, and equipment and cargo are placed inside it. Now it's time to install a tail unit. The tail unit helps a fighter keep its balance, turn, and adjust its altitude. It's time to install controls. They are necessary for a pilot to control the fighter. Let's install an aircraft canopy with all-around visibility. The aircraft canopy protects the pilot of a fighter jet from wind and weather conditions. Now let's install the missiles. The missiles home at targets and are used to hit objects in the air or on the ground. That's all. The hull is a main part of the destroyer that keeps it on the surface of the water. Now drag a propulsion system to its place. It sets a destroyer in motion. Now it's time to install generators. The generators provide power for the equipment and weapon systems of a destroyer. These are the fuel tanks. Install them. The fuel tanks contain gasoline or other fuel. And now let's install a deck. It is a horizontal slab that separates the internal part of the ship from its external part. And now we need to install a funnel. It is needed to expel smoke and gases from the engine compartment. Let's install a helipad. It is needed so that a helicopter could take off and land on board of a destroyer. Now it's time to install a superstructure with a bridge and a mast. The destroyer is controlled from the bridge. This is a radar. Come, let's install it. It helps to detect aerial, marine, and land targets. And now let's install an anchor. The anchor is needed to keep the destroyer in place. Now let's install searchlights. The searchlights illuminate the way of a destroyer in the dark. Let's install a flagpole with a flag. A flagpole is a stand for a flag. The flag indicates which country the vessel belongs to. It's time to install the artillery of a destroyer. This is the main weapon of a destroyer that's used to hit marine and land targets. Now we need to install anti-aircraft artillery. This is the weapon of a destroyer that's used to defend or hit aerial targets. Let's install depth charge mortars. They are needed to hit underwater and surface targets. Amazing! Let's install the rubber skirt of a hovercraft. Thanks to it, a hovercraft can travel on land, water, and other surfaces. These are the fuel tanks. Install them. The fuel tanks contain gasoline or other fuel. Now we need to install fans. The fans supply air to the rubber skirt of a hovercraft. Let's install a hull. All parts of a hovercraft are attached to the hull and the cargo is placed inside it. Now let's install variable pitch propellers. The propellers rotate and make a hovercraft move. Now let's install rudders. They are used to change the direction of a hovercraft. Let's install sustainer engines. Sustainer engines drive the variable pitch propellers. These are the generators of a hovercraft. Let's install them. The generators provide power for the equipment and systems of a hovercraft. And now let's install fan engines. The engines rotate the blades of fans that supply air to the rubber skirt of a hovercraft, making it rise above the surface. Now let's install a cabin. The cabin includes a wheelhouse and the compartments for passengers and crew. Now let's install lighting equipment. The lighting equipment of a hovercraft consists of a searchlight, position lights, and a flashing beacon. Now let's install the radars of a hovercraft. The radars are used to detect marine and land targets and to determine their range. They help navigate in the dark or when the visibility is poor. Keep it up. That's all.